Well, this is News with a View, a Fat Cat production, hosted by me, John A. Costa. Today is September 21st, 2025. This is episode 131. I took about 6 days off. Needed to get away and met some wonderful people in Walt Disney World, Florida. Big shout out to them. I never mention names because I don't. But I met some great people and a few veterans and a few people that are still serving our country today. A big shout out to all of them and everyone who has served. Thank you. No matter what your political affiliation is, thank you for your services. It's very important. And it should be said, our veterans are really not taken care of in this country. But today's discussion is basically going to be, and I hate doing it, I really do. But it has to do with all the talk about, the FCC, Kimmel being finally put in his place. And the same with Colbert. Both of those individuals were toxic. They were allowed to be toxic. But I think in the case of CBS Incorporated, and I do not speak for CBS, this is just me. I think they had enough of his shenanigans without it paying a dividend. And that this was a problem. It could be a problem. And his time has come. Did Colbert make CBS money? Oh, absolutely, he made CBS money. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But I would say in the last 6 or 7 years, no. No, he did not make the money to make his shenanigans worth it for CBS. Why they let him go? They just didn't really let him go. They just said, we're not going to renew your contract. It is my belief, and I've said this months before, when this all was happening, that my belief is Kimmel would be fired, and Colbert would be gone. I said that in was probably one of my first episodes, first 5 episodes. And I said it not because of a political reason. In that sense, it was because the people just had enough of it. And if you looked at the way people voted, this just wasn't in their genre anymore, that they were going to listen to this. The funny thing about those shows, those late night shows, anything after 11:30 p.m., they're not leading. They're not bringing eyeballs across. They might be keeping some people that were up to keep the eyeballs looking at it, and they needed something in that time frame. 11:30 was too early to put up, the American flag and say goodnight for the evening, as they used to do at about 4 a.m. in the morning, 3 a.m. in the morning. Local stations would break away. They'd go off the air. But that changed. Now, with Kimmel, Fallon, and Myers, their big money draw was in social media. For some reason, Colbert just could never make that jump into making a lot of money on YouTube and these other social platforms. He just couldn't do it. And losing $40 million a year as an estimate, as was reported by CBS. A new company coming in and also trimming everything. I mean, CBS has been trimming everything, getting that down to bare bones for the merger. And it was expected that, if the company could save $40 million, they were going to do it. Now, what they're going to fill that time slot with, who knows what their ultimate plan is. If it were me, I'd be putting up Beverly Hillbillies, I Dream of Jeannie, things of that nature, Green Acres, because they all make money and they're paid for it. Doesn't cost anything. You put it up. You need one person running the whole show for the night, not 60 or 70 or 80 people that you actually need to put on a show for 1 hour, like Colbert. Those shows cost millions of dollars per week to produce. And here, you just take it. For the most part, they've already been digitized. And you're just playing them back. You put it on an auto playback that it starts at 11:37 and 20 seconds. Here's all the black slugs in it for the stations. They put in their commercials, and off you go. If it cost the network $500 per night to put that show out, which I don't even think it would cost that much, and the revenue stream would be tremendous coming in. So why do you need a late night talk host? Because you had Johnny Carson and you had these other shows, legacy shows. I don't think you have people staying up now and doing that. And if they do, you could watch it anytime you want. You don't need to look at them at that time. And that's where technology kind of bit the idea of a network in the butt. Because now you were competing against time slots against yourself. You had, Sunday was the day of everything back in the 60s. Sunday from 8 o'clock till 10 o'clock you had programming. And you had to wait. Well, nowadays you don't have to. I could watch this show at 8 o'clock. That aired at 8 o'clock, and I could watch it at 2 in the morning. I could watch it on the way to work. I could watch it, anywhere. But in that same breath, when I'm watching that show, I'm not watching any of their other shows. So you end up competing against yourself. There is no more time slot. And I think this is what networks are discovering. And this was always, in the backs of engineers' heads that came out with what's called VOD, video on demand. was that if you put all these old shows and all this stuff available to people, why would they watch your shows today? And how are you going to make money from that? How are you going to translate that into advertising dollars? That's, in essence, who had to do it. And for the longest time, networks were prohibited from producing their own shows. So they had to go to an outside, a Warner's Brothers, and buy the show from them and pay them, and then hopefully make enough money on the deals that, you become profitable. And then that changed, and networks were once again allowed to own the show and thus make, billions. But with video on demand, you don't have to watch a network anymore. I don't need those lead in and lead out. Like we used to say, football at CBS on Sunday night would then lead into 60 Minutes. And you wanted to keep those people that were watching football to slide on over into 60 Minutes and watch that show. So lead-in shows were very, very important, even though they might not have generated a lot of ad revenue, though football, of course, did. But the cost of doing that to the cost of what you were making was, not break even. They made money. But it was, a lot easier and a lot less expensive with, the lead-in from I Dream of Jeannie into something else, or the Dick Van Dyke Show back then into something else. You kept on a network. They would always lead something in, and networks would have shows against one another. Disney against ABC, or Channel 4 would be the Disney Channel. And when I say Channel 4, that was New York, but it was NBC. And, they'd be up against, the FBI or something like that. And so you tried to have Monday night, remember Monday night at the movies, and Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursday, and then Friday you had shows. And, Sundays you had your variety shows. Because those, everything was packaged. But now you don't have to do that. So with Kimmel and them saying, that was President Trump, telling ABC and no, Trump saying Kimmel, was terrible was no different than Kimmel saying Trump was terrible. Made no difference. But when Kimmel started making inflammatory remarks that he was acting like news and it wasn't news, and then he was making comments. You remember when Teslas were being, vandalized, and he goes, yeah, no one should ever vandalize, no, and he wasn't joking. He was inciting. He was inciting because Elon Musk, one, was working now for the president. Elon Musk had an industry that did take jobs away because of technology. So Kimmel thought that this was a terrible thing, and so going after Elon Musk because of those things, that he could sit there and make stock predictions and stuff, which he should never have been able to do. That the network should have told him, you can go this far and no further, because now you get into very murky territory. And was Elon Musk wrong when he said the stock was tanking? Well, it wasn't tanking. It was going down, but it wasn't tanking. And to make people then think that the stock, you should get out of it, maybe he was almost giving financial advice. And that's what his program was not about. If it was a finance channel, yeah, go have at it. You could, get away with that. But he wasn't. And he had not only walked the fine line, he crossed that fine line. And when the opportunity arose for like a Sinclair broadcaster to say, hey, we're not, his things on Charlie Kirk, he should have just said that was horrible. That's not what America stands for. My sympathy to his family. I disagreed with 99% of what Charlie Kirk would say. I would disagree with it. But I never wished him harm, nor should anyone. And that's where his free speech could have come in. Now, you don't have free speech when you work for a company, just so you know that. You have no free speech. Your free speech to say something outside that company, as long as it's not in your contract or in an acknowledgement from that company to you, such as the handbook, you got to be real careful. So when Sinclair and other broadcasters said, we're not going to show Charlie Kirk, we're not going to show his program. We are not bound for these reasons. And ABC goes, whoa, 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 I lose 40% of my ad revenue. Show's already losing money. And I said this months and months ago that this would happen. Because you could blame Trump in a sense. You could say Trump's influence, but Kimmel's influence, Kimmel's own words sunk him. Because you have a responsibility when you're on television. And he just tossed that to the side. And Johnny Carson had said that years and years ago, that entertainers should not get into controversial things. Carson would make fun of presidents. He did it, but he did it in a clever and tongue-in-cheek and never horribly mean. And you could say President Trump says horrible, mean things, and I would agree with you. He has said some horrible, mean things. And should he? No. But Kimmel works for ABC, and ABC could tell him no. Trump works for the United States, and the voters can say no to him. Or the people that he wants to go, I want this guy, and they go, well, you know what? If he thinks like you, I don't want him. But that's how that side works. Kimmel works for ABC. And at the end of the day, they can tell him what they want to tell him. Just like at the end of the day, CBS told Colbert, we're not going to renew your contract. And it is still my belief that Colbert will not make it to the end of the year. Maybe now that Kimmel, maybe Colbert will go, I don't want to go flat out on my face. But I think that he will say something. He will go against the better judgment And Paramount will have to turn around and go, hey, we asked you. We begged you. And now we're going to do this. And, okay, your show's ending. Is that the way you want it to end? You want to go down in a blaze of glory? We'll help you with that. We'll make your wishes come true. Is that your wish? And Colbert's a smart man. I mean, a lot smarter than Kimmel. And I think he's going to weigh it and go, yeah, I'm just going to push it this far and no further. Senator Schumer came out on Thursday and said that Kimmel was fired because of Epstein. Went on social media, went on X, and said that it was because Kimmel was pushing the Epstein files, that there's something in there about Trump. Now, I'm going to tell you all that if there was anything in there with Trump and Epstein that we did not know, somehow, some way, that would have found its way out. Where it was a leak and Biden had no idea about this. We're going to try to plug that leak. That should not happen because it was going to be an active investigation now. If they had it, they would have come out with it. I think the FBI and the Department of Justice are going through the Epstein file looking for names. And looking for, not for going after those people, because I wouldn't do that. If I was at Trump, I would go to these people and I'd go, hey, listen, who would have thought 12 years ago this would be an issue? But there it is in black and white. Now we're going to hold these files down. We're going to lock these files up. But if you're sitting here screaming your colleagues, let them loose, I'm going to have to let them loose. So, you have a choice. You could be one of the people that just sit back and go, I hope they don't push it far enough that this stuff is released. Whereas your name is not in anything that's doing anything bad. Your name is just there. But you will be guilty by association. So you might want to do what you can do to stop that. Now, I'm telling you the stuff that's in there, and here it is. You can read it. If you don't mind that going out, then fight with your colleagues to have this all released. And you take your chances. But from everything I read in here, you're a decent fellow. Shouldn't happen to a dog. That's what I would be doing. Instead of making an enemy, I'd make a friend. I go, I don't want to see, you did nothing wrong, but you're going to be guilt by association. I don't want to see that happen. So, but if you are perfectly fine with this, if you want to go out and make an announcement that we presented this to you, so you know what's coming down the road, have at it. I give you that. You could see the headlights coming at you, and if you think you could jump out of the way in time, so be it. There's nothing in here that's horribly incriminating. But you're going to have to answer question on top of question on top of question on top of question till it just, you can't answer anymore and you're out. All right, you have a good day. That's exactly how I would do it. I wouldn't say, I want you to vote this way, I want you to do this. No, I'm just telling you what's going to come your way. That's all. But from what I can see here, you're a good man. You didn't do anything wrong. But I'm just giving you a chance that I know other people would not give you that chance. And then just leave it at that. Schumer is the biggest bag of crap. And again, all the Democrats have is Epstein, Epstein, Epstein. He's a dead guy. Nothing in there is going to change anything. Maxwell is already in jail. Nothing is going to change. There's nothing in there, because if there was stuff in there, and I'm sure there is stuff in there, and I'm sure it goes against both parties, Republicans, Democrats, maybe even some liberals. It will pose an embarrassment for donors. We all know that politicians are dirty. But now we'll get to see the donors. And the donors that are going to those islands that gave money to X people. Well, you know, you want to scream and dance around there, hey, you can do that. Don't screw with the cash register. Republicans don't win without money, and Democrats don't win without money. Don't mess with the cash register. So Schumer knows that the only thing they have left is Epstein. That's it. That's all they have. Everything. Our problem in America is Epstein, right? Wasn't the border. Wasn't crime. It's Epstein. I want you to think about that for a minute. And you could say, well, if there's nothing there, everything should be released. It doesn't work that way. Because everything was released that needed to be released during the trial of Maxwell. And everyone was satisfied. Oh, yeah, boom, boom, boom. Nothing can happen to Jeffrey Epstein, who I believe is living on an island laughing at all this. But nothing. The only ones that can get hurt are people that are on that list, regardless if they did something wrong or did something innocent. You will be painted with the same brush. And I think that there are Republicans on there and there are Democrats on there. There are donors that gave to both parties that didn't care. I'm just looking to see, hey, this is the numbers. This is who's going to win. I'm going to need you right where you are. And what do you think a freaking lobbyist is? So, Schumer now making those type comments about Jimmy Kimmel. Again, the acts, the acts of a drowning person. I'm gonna just grab at anything. And you got a lot of people that aren't running again for office. They're just not doing it. Nadler, who was, nothing happened in his area without him getting a taste. Donation-wise, politically, or just knowing. That was his turf. Schumer, he was a parasite. But you could just see by the numbers, New York is turning. In the, 8 months, 9 months of Trump now, he is really making a lot of headway. And there's some things that he's going to win on, and some things he's going to lose on. But even the Democrats will have to admit that Trump has been winning the majority of the things that he wanted to go after. Some of them are pipe dreams, and some of them are going to be reality. I was never happy with, but though I understood why, the census reports and stuff were used and every 10 years. But I can understand where Trump said that stuff has been so diluted that you can't trust that information. You have a socialist communist running for the mayor of New York, or pin in the map of capitalism. And the Democrats are supporting that. Not all the Democrats, but the Democrats as a whole are supporting that. Instead of rallying around, another Democrat. It's not to be believed. But then you have AOC, who, has absolutely done nothing for her district. It's drug and crime infested that you can't believe. It's up there with Philadelphia, Kensington. The absolute zero of the Democrats. And in 2026, and starting soon, the advertising will start. The political advertising will start. And I can tell you that it will be on the hate speech of the Democrats, pictures of the president getting shot, pictures of Charlie Kirk's bloodied platform. They won't show Charlie Kirk being assassinated. That's just too hard to handle. But they'll show the aftermath. And then they'll have all the people who were talking hate with the tag, is this what you want America to become? Is this the America you want? And you could say, this was brought to you by the Democrats. This is what the Democrats have brought to the table in the last 10 years. You didn't think by calling people Hitler for the last 15 years, calling them fascists, calling them, they're going to destroy democracy, they're going to take all your rights from you. If they get voted in, all your rights are taken. So what do you think fringe elements do? And that takes us all the way back to Kimmel. He had an audience that mainly was liberals. And they keep indoctrinating them. Keep feeding them. Keep telling them daily, every day. And then when this happens, they go, I don't know. How could this have happened? Or, even worse, this is MAGA's fault. Rosie herpy-lipped O'Donnell, first thing she said about the school shooter, MAGA. First thing she said about Charlie Kirk, it's a MAGA. The hate of the Democrats. And when I say Democrats, I want to reiterate something that I keep saying over and over again. I'm not talking about my neighbors. I'm talking about those in power. But where I do blame my neighbors is for putting and keeping those people in power. You should remove them. Find another Democrat that doesn't have those values of hate, but have your other values. Unless you have a value of hate too. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you do. I don't have a value of hate being a Republican. I believe in the Constitution. And everyone has the right to challenge our laws and try an effective means to change those laws through the system. I don't think rioting and looting and tearing down statues, and this is all going to be there, folks. Brought to you by the Democrats. Who's paying for all this stuff? How are these buses being paid for? How is this all taking place under the eyes of the Democrats, right? How can you say that this is not a thing? That who is financing this all? And that's the thing that bothers me. How is it being financed? How is this all being done? Is it through legitimate sources? If it's done through legitimate sources and people are giving money so they could hire buses and hire, you know, paid protesters, because that's what they're doing. And that's the other thing, folks. When the people speak, then politicians should listen. But when people are paid, that's like an infomercial. I don't want them listening to them. I want the men and women of the street doing that, not someone paid to do it, because that's not really the voice of the people. That's the voice of someone being paid, like a lobbyist. I think that should be illegal. But how do you do that? How do you frame that? Common sense says that shouldn't be done. That you being paid to protest against something I can't because I got to work that day. Well, that's the price. Well, no. It's wrong. That's not the voice of the people. That's the voice of a person who's paying the people to amplify his voice or her voice or their, whatever pronoun you want to freaking use. And this is where common sense Americans, Republicans and Democrats, should go, no. We got to know who's talking and how they're talking and who's behind that talk. And I go that with Republicans and I go that with Democrats. It's not just one party. I want to know who's behind them. It's important. Now, you could all have your problems with Charlie Kirk, who said we did not live in a democracy, and he was absolutely correct. We did not live in a democracy. We lived in a republic that had some democratic values, but in a true democracy, our way of doing things wouldn't work. Charlie Kirk believed being gay was an affront to his beliefs, to God. You could believe that. He didn't say, take them up to a building and throw them off. He never was about violence or even exclusion. He was against the transgender mutilation, and mostly of minors through medication and surgical means, that was wrong. And that was mental illness, which I certainly agree with. And if you can't figure out who you are as a person and you're conflicted, well, there's a lot of things I don't want you doing. Now, you can be a lot of things, but I don't want you speaking for me. Whereas if you can't get the basics down, I can't trust anything else you're saying or will do. And I know that is me saying that. I don't think there should be a law against it, other than for minors. And minors, not minors. People in mine, you can dig for everything you want, as long as it's allowed. But a minor, even with parents behind them, that shouldn't be allowed. And if for some medical reason it should be, the parents have to have a psych eval. It has to be by, 2 independent or 3 independent doctors before that goes on. Because that's a one-way trip, folks. And in most studies, they showed that, it is a temporary relief for these people. But in the end, they regret it. And then the suicide rate, because these people now go, okay, I wanted to be a man, or I wanted to be a woman, and I thought that would fix my problems. And now I did all this, and it didn't fix anything. So what's next? There's nowhere else for me to go, and they kill themselves, which is horrible for them, horrible for their family. I don't want to see anyone do that. I don't want any family member to have to go through that. And some of these people are broken toys. They're just broken toys. Can they be fixed? Yeah, but it's always a broken toy. You'll never be new out of the box. They're broken. And mental illness is there. I mean, is being gay a mental illness? I don't know. But I would say there's something wrong, and that's the body's and nature's way of saying, you're not going to reproduce. To carry that, whatever is wrong with you, down the road. So if you want to be with the same sex, that's great. You're not reproducing. And thus, as with the dinosaurs, the problem fixes itself. And you go, well, then there'd be no gays. Well, unfortunately, or fortunately, or whatever the case may be, gay people suppress it. They have families, and thus the gene does get passed down the line. Now, I'm not saying that if you're gay, you should be sterilized or anything like that. No, I'm just saying, I'm giving you how nature would handle it. And I think that's how nature handles it. We're just smart enough to know how to get around nature. But I don't think you should be punished because you're gay, or, you have all the same rights we have. Period. End of story. You don't need any special rights. You don't need any special dispensation. You don't need anything more than what I got. But I do have a major problem in the transgender world. Now, you want to be a cross-dresser? All right, listen, if you're a dude and, you're wearing anything but a kilt, and my dress code here says no kilts, you got to dress accordingly. Or this job is not for you. I should not be forced to go, I have to have X amount of these people and X amount of that people and X amount of that. No. Crazy world. Crazy world. That's not what any of our freedoms were about. that, you know, I should be able to have a bakery and I can decide what I want to bake. Hey, I'm not baking a cake like that. I shouldn't be forced to. You know, I shouldn't be forced to. I shouldn't be forced to hire people that I would not hire. And you could say, well, they're going to not hire the, you know, a black person. That's not what I'm saying. Not what I'm saying. And for you to go, well, most companies then wouldn't hire a black person. Then you're saying that the company should be forced to hire a black person. Is that what you're saying? Or a woman, or a gay, or a fat guy, or a skinny guy, or this, or that. Where the real answer is ability, experience, and in certain absolute areas, education. But I've seen people with no formal electronic education that would put seasoned engineers to shame. And that's the truth. Now, I would not say I have seen a guy coming off the street and do heart surgery. So, yeah, I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want, you know, some guy without understanding the law and a law degree to represent me in a civil or criminal matter. But I'm not going to question the credentials of someone who is an expert car repairman or body work or a plumber or a carpenter or an artist. I'm not going to do that. Because if they are any of that, they'll be successful at it. If not, they won't be, and they've got to find something else. But just because I think, you know, I kid that all the time. You know, oh, you know about cars. Yeah, I think of myself as an auto mechanic. If you ask an experienced auto mechanic, they go, well, I'm never getting in one of his cars. And that's fine. They don't have to. No one's forcing them to. But going back to Kimmel and going back to Colbert, was Trump influential in some of this stuff? You bet he was. Did he have the final say on it? Nope. Nope. Colbert was about money, and if you go back and you were to ask people in the know at CBS, they were talking about Colbert being we're just throwing money down the hole. And if Colbert wanted to stay, then that, $20 or $30 million a year that he's getting, no, we'll keep you for $3 million or $4 million. But, and we'll put a clause, you have a clause in your contract that all of a sudden, if you're pushing numbers and the revenue and everything else is coming up, you'll escalate with that. But then we also want, if those numbers go down even further, you escalate down too. Right? Because an escalator can go up and an escalator can go down. Kimmel was about his speech. And yes, as a citizen, does he have the right to say what he can say? Up to a point, as we all do. But when you work for an employer, not so much. Not so much. Now, ABC is trying to save face by, well, we're going to see how we can get Kimmel back on the air. Yeah. You have to get it past the station groups that said we don't want Kimmel. And my feeling is that Kimmel will argue the fact that he should be paid. And I would agree with that. Because ABC didn't stop him in the beginning of his rhetoric and go, whoa, whoa, tone it down. We have people look at those shows. Those shows are very rarely ever live. They're taped shows. And there is a standards and practice person that looks at this, and then that's part of the legal people who go, you can go this far, but you can't go any further. And, if the standards and practice guy goes, hey, we got a problem, he picks up a phone, and within minutes, the phone branch is lighting up, and everyone's on board watching it and going, yeah, that's a problem. He can't do that. Or he can do it, but understand this could be a problem over here and here and here. You got an answer for that? So, all these people have standards and practices. There's no one that goes out there and doesn't have standards and practices. Even live events, and I can only talk about CBS because that's who I had worked for. We had time delays, and we had people pushing the button to stop it. So you could have anywhere from a 10-second delay to a 2-minute delay. So that if you had a wardrobe malfunction, if you had this, if the person just went up there and just started cursing, whoop, the show would skip that to live, and then it would start putting it into a delay mode again. So Kimmel, ABC would have a hard time saying that, he went too far. Did the FCC order them? No. The FCC just told them, hey, you're getting close to us having to come in and take a real look at your house. Right now, I'll do it from the curb. Don't let me walk into your house. And ABC had already been fined. Not fined, I'm sorry. ABC had already settled for things that Stephanopoulos said, or whatever his name is, George, said. And, CBS already paid Trump for things that they said. CBS also then had to revisit because of editing that they were doing on other programs to say, yeah, all right, this is going to be a problem. We promise not to do that. And that was fine. That was fine. All the parties were like, yeah, we just want a fair shake out of this. Not asking you to do anything that you wouldn't do for anyone else, but you do it for them, but you don't do it for me. And when it comes to the news, you got to be careful with that. And when it's presented as news, that's why a lot of these are called shows. Oh, we didn't say we're news. This is a show. And then you start drilling down and you find that, well, they're not even part of the news division. They're part of the entertainment division. So, ugh. But CBS and ABC are learning a lesson. Fox had learned that lesson. Can't lie about ballot boxes and ballot machines. You can't try to cover up sexual misconduct by people in power that have an influence over others. You can't do that. You're going to have a bad day. Ask Charlie Rose. You're going to have a bad day. Well, on that note, we've been up here an hour. That's about my limit. Again, I thank you. Again, News with a View. I'm John Acosta. And to the people that I met at Disney in the last 4 or 5 days, we had a great time. I appreciate you all, and those that served and do serve. Thank you. Thank you for your services. We're all safer and better people. So, and with that, I'm going to say, give to a charity. I know charity begins at home. But if you can't give to a charity, a known charity, one that you trust, don't become a victim helping a victim. If you can, give it to a local food bank. And when you go there, ask them what else they need other than food. You'd be surprised. Say a prayer. Prayer works. And with that, I am going to fade to black.